Pop quiz. What's worse? A civil war, getting lost in a pyramid, or uncovering that the god Anubis is still alive? Answer. It's actually much worse than all of those. Apparently, it's owing NASA money. Welcome back, horror fans. I'm Leo, and Bootube Breakdowns is here to save your scary movie night. Right off the bat, The Pyramid scores a 3.2 out of 10, landing it in our zombie stumble category. But here's the thing. I've already had to get eaten by mummy cats while impaled through the chest just to get you this score. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly why this film earned its ratings. If you disagree with my score at the end of the video, be sure to let me know how much you want to get folded through a narrow tunnel by a demigod. And then be sure to like, share, and subscribe about it in the comment section. Fair warning, I am going to name none of the characters in this movie because they mattered that little to the whole story. We start with a team of archaeologists studying the pyramids of Egypt, which find themselves in the middle of a civil war during their excavation. Pressure from the local government as well as their financial backers force the team to abandon the dig just as a new chamber is discovered. Fearing that funding for research will be pulled if nothing of value is brought back, the team sends in a robot to film the inside of the chamber just to have something to bring back to their university. They send in a robot, but oh no, something attacks it while in there. Turns out the robot is on loan from NASA, worth a shit ton of money, and they have to retrieve it or they're going to be in big trouble. In goes the team with time running out to retrieve the machine, and in predictable fashion, something cuts off the lifeline, so they all get lost in the pyramid, and they must survive booby traps, mummy cats, and the actual god Anubis. The story is an old-fashioned escape thriller with a fun little ancient civilization flavor added to it. The story here is pretty simple and straightforward. Here we have a group of archaeologists doing some archaeology. Under the lesser threat of a looming war zone spilling over to the dig site and a much more serious threat of the university pulling funding for the dig, they decide to send in a rover to take some pictures of the inside of the site just so they have something to bring back and not have their funding pulled. So far so good and totally believable. They send the multi-million-dollar rover they have on loan from NASA for reasons to take some pictures before they have to leave. A creature destroys the rover and now they have to go get it. The lifeline gets cut, of course it does, and they get lost, fall into some booby traps, and then mummy cats attack the crew and start to spread some disease amongst them. All in all, so far we have a very basic escape story with at least a good faith attempt at making it believable. All things considered, on the one hand, you can say, why not just go into the pyramid and take pictures before they get attacked? To which anyone can then say, yeah, you don't know the danger, send in a robot instead. So I'm not going to rag on the film too hard for this detail. There's a ton of contrivances like this throughout the story, but ultimately it's very middle of the road, reminiscent of other movies like The Descent, for example, which I have already done a review on. Story quality gets a very safe and middle of the road 5 out of 10. The pacing of this film was alright. It follows the copy-paste found footage formula of found footage films at that time. We start with a fake candid shot of the crew getting friendly and at times a little too friendly. There's character introductions, mission objectives, tensions, all of that. People are then lured into the cave, a pyramid in this case. They get trapped, they try to escape, encounter monsters, cry in the dark for 5 minutes, try to escape again, have a final showdown with the monster, and our final character escape or dies at the end. The film follows this formula zealously, only once coloring outside the lines. There's a weird little scene in the middle where a soldier that was trying to get everyone to leave in the beginning of the film tries to save everyone, but then gets eaten by some creature, and ultimately just serves as a brief interruption to the formula. It was more of a cameo than a plot point, and it felt more like a scene to bloat the runtime to just barely hit the 89-minute mark. This movie was definitely meant to be a short and not a full-length film. Ultimately, I give the pacing of this movie a 4 out of 10. The fear factor here is going to be fairly high, all things considered. Although the claustrophobia of the pyramid doesn't do much for me, and the monsters chasing you in a cave cliche has been done a million times, there's the added factor of the booby traps that added an extra layer of fear that was interesting to consider. Looking at things from the crew's perspective, you cannot even run from the dangers because of one wrong step and the floor beneath you can cave into a tiger trap, or sand can be triggered to flood in and bury you alive. The cats were an ever-present danger, but the one who steals the show will ultimately have to be Anubis himself. For a good chunk of the movie, he was kept hidden in the background, but once the reveal came, it didn't shy away from showing us this literal god on Earth, and showed us what he was doing to the victims that was much more terrifying than simply eating the victims. That said, this movie has been made many times before and in other ways, so the scares themselves are a lot less impactful and rely pretty heavily on cheap scares just to keep you engaged. After a 3-point cheap scare deduction, I'll give the final fear factor for this one a 2 out of 10. Don't get me wrong, I love The Mummy as much as the next person, but Egypt flavoring isn't enough to keep this movie going. Starting with the things I liked, the mummy cats were awesome. The way they could just pop out of any corner to take a swipe or bite you was fantastic. I love all things ancient Egypt themed, so visually this movie was a treat. Also, talking about Anubis, he was fantastic to watch. Yeah, the CGI is a bit dated, but he was definitely a lot of fun to watch as a menacing beast. However, when we get to the parts that I didn't enjoy, I'll once again start with Anubis. Yeah, he's scary looking, but Anubis is supposed to be a benevolent spirit guide, not a threat. So butchering the lore of Anubis bothered me a bit. There's the found footage aspect of the movie where they bounce back and forth between found footage and traditional cameras. By refusing to commit to a single style, the transitions are often jarring and disorienting. Also, let's take away the cheap scares, and the movie reveals something that it probably didn't want to show you. It's actually kind of boring. As I said before, it's ultimately just an Egypt-flavored cave escape drama disguised as a horror movie and shot in found footage style. I'm going to give the fun factor on this one a 4 out of 10. The ending was both confusing and annoying, to be honest. We ham-fist some exposition about Anubis winning the hearts of people to get into the afterlife, and how this Anubis is stealing hearts in order to trick the scales or something. Hey, look over there, star map, find the pyramid. It's up, so we must escape by going up. Literally, that was just dropped in there. I wish I was making that up. That entire line was just dropped in there. The people then go, hey, let's look around this corner, and oh my god, there's the ladder that the soldier guy used to get into the cave. Let's climb it. But oh no, Anubis found the last two characters at the last second and captured one of them. The final character climbs a little further, then slips and falls about 100 feet, grabs onto the ladder again, and continues climbing. Anubis then goes up the shaft again to capture the last character and tries to do a ritual. She escapes as the mummy cats show up and attack Anubis. Reasons unknown. And then she climbs to the top, collapses near the entrance of a cave, and the infection that she got... Oh, by the way, she has an infection now, surprise. It has spread before we get to the final shot of Anubis appearing from the shadows to attack a kid that discovered her body as she was dying. Also, cue in that cringy early 2000s grunge music, but it's 2014. Yeah, I don't even know what to make of that ending. The final showdown was dumb. Anubis himself was dumb. And by the way, the virus was still a thing for some reason. It was never explained or explored, and the ending was not satisfying at all. And Really? Ending a movie with grunge music? Straight to jail. Ending gets a 1 out of 10. So that's Bootube Breakdowns' take on The Pyramid. Averaging our scores gives this movie a 3.2 out of 10, which places it in the zombie stumble category. Do you agree with my rating? Scream your score in the comments section and let me know what horror movie I should gut next. If this saved your spooky vibes, smash that like, share with your horror crew, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to Bootube Breakdowns for more killer verdicts. Keep it creepy, and I'll haunt you in the next review.